And this came as a request from somebody who sent me a delightful email and I asked him, what would you like to see in the future as far as, well, the future is now. What would you like to see as a topic? And he asked about the equipment that we use in autism fitness programming. So a couple of key things about equipment usage, right? So equipment are tools. They are tools to perform a task to get something done, right? The equipment that I originally chose for autism fitness programming was because I started my career working in smaller spaces, a lot of in-home programs where you don't necessarily, or I didn't necessarily have a large amount of space for all manner of squat racks and dumbbells and sleds. So looking at it from, and this is a big deal when we talk about programming for the autism and neuroadaptive population, objects versus objectives. What are the goals and objectives that we have for our athletes, and what tools can we use to get them there, right? And this is why I often, I don't know, push back, but argue against, oh, what about just body weight training with no equipment because it's free? Body weight training can be a lot more challenging and a lot less accessible with respect to good movement and building strength and stability than using appropriate equipment. For example, a push-up, which is a great exercise that many of our ASD and ND athletes cannot yet do. It's body weight. You don't need equipment, but yet it's a lot harder than a 2-pound or a 4-pound sandbell overhead press as a pressing movement. Of course, they're two different movements, but at the same time, we want some type of overhead pressing movement. So when we understand, and this is absolutely key, when we understand the underlying physical goals and what we want to achieve for our athletes, namely pushing, pulling, squatting, carrying, hinging, locomotion, then we can build programs around that. Now, where does the equipment come in? The equipment comes in because we need something to utilize in order to meet those goals. So in this video, you'll see some of my go-to equipment, and it's not about, oh, I found that, here's the object side. Sometimes people work in the opposite. Oh, I have this really cool piece of equipment. Let's see how we can use it. No. We have specific goals with reference to strength, stability, and motor planning. What is going to be the best tool and the best environmental setup to get that job done? If you're going object first, it is not going to be an optimal program, period, because you are working around the thing rather than working around the person. And if you work around the thing instead of working around the person, you're going to miss some big aspects of training. So for one example, sandbells, which you're going to see in this video, which we use all the time for presses, for slams, they're a cool piece of equipment. All right, so little neoprene discs filled with sand. I get no money for promoting these, by the way. And so a lot of people are delighted by these. Oh, those are so cool. Those are so great. They are going to be meaningless in your program if you don't understand how to program. If you don't know where they fit in, how they fit in, what exercises to do, how to provide a progression, a modification, how to cue and prompt correctly, you have a really cool piece of equipment and no knowledge around what to do with it. So the equipment is even less important. It's important, but as the education and as understanding the model of programming and of behavior support and of cognitive abilities, hence the PAC profile that we have in the Autism Fitness Level 1 curriculum, right? These are the things that govern our program, and then we fit in the objects or the equipment to fill the needs of what we need to achieve with our athletes. So check this out. There's a quick tour of the equipment that I use. And again, as a caution, because this does bear repeating here, it's not about getting all this equipment and, ooh, now I can run a fitness program for the ASD population. Nope, don't work that way, won't ever work that way. It's a combination of having the skills and the training and having the appropriate equipment as well.
So here we have the essentials of training. As far as our autism fitness programming goes, and it's not to say that there certainly aren't other pieces of equipment that are valuable, that are highly useful, but if we're talking about having the least amount that is necessary in a relatively small environment, obviously not here, but if we're talking about a home or a school situation, these are going to be the essential pieces of equipment. So we can start off with our hurdles. These, of course, are the adjustable hurdles, able to make them lower or higher depending on the athlete's height and also their current level of hip mobility and hip flexibility. And we can, of course, set them up as far or close as they need to be, depending on stride length. So the hurdles are going to be the first piece of equipment that we're going to go over. Again, easy to store, relatively inexpensive, and can be used for forward hurdle steps for hip mobility and hip flexion, used for lateral steps as our athletes progress. And then we come on over here to the medicine ball. This is the Dynamax medicine ball. This is the preferred medicine ball for all our autism fitness programs. This is the mini ball because it only has a 10-inch diameter, and it is perfect for not only our push throws but also overhead and scoop throws, because the diameter isn't so wide that the athlete has to adjust a lot or bring their elbows out if they're doing an overhead throw, or make too much of a foot placement adjustment if they're doing a scoop throw. So that's going to be the second one. Different variations of medicine ball throws, including our essential 3 that we can do with the Dynamax medicine ball. This is an absolute necessity in training. Then, of course, our rings for spatial awareness and where are we supposed to be right now. So we utilize the rings for giving the athlete a sense of where they need to be standing right now, and it's also a great visual cue for first you're going to start in the red, and then you're going to wind up over in the blue. And then we get to our sandbells. Of course, these can be used for presses, for slams, and the idea is not, oh, we can do 18 different things with these. We're going to do 2 or 3, maybe 4 different things with the sandbells, but the reason I love these is because they are soft, they're filled with sand, so they are much safer as a choice than a dumbbell, especially for athletes who might drop or throw them. The Hyperwear sandbells are versatile, safe, and they give us some type of weight that we can use again for pressing, sometimes for slams. And then, of course, we move over here to our bands. Our bands we use for warm-up exercises such as overhead walks and walking band pulls, and then we can loop them up to a squat rack or any other anchor point, whether it's overhead or direct in line, for our band pull downs or our standing band rows. Again, highly portable, versatile, and they come in a range of different resistances. You can see this orange one is thinner than the red one. And then we have our boxes. Now, the boxes are absolutely necessary when we are coaching our athletes to squat, because if our athlete cannot squat below parallel freestyle or with body weight, which most of our ASD and neuroadaptive athletes cannot when they first start, we're going to need a platform for them. So a box of some sort. We have the wooden boxes here. We also have the foam boxes over there, are going to be extremely valuable for providing a visual, spatial, and physical cue or kinesthetic cue for our athletes as well. So that's a quick tour of our go-to equipment. And all of this clearly does not take up a lot of space. And the other part of this is when people ask, well, what about starting with body weight? Body weight is not always easier. You know, a push-up is not necessarily easier than overhead pressing a pair of 4-pound sandbells. So this is what I would call the essential equipment if you're going to start a program for the autism and neuroadaptive population. How much equipment is going to be dependent on both the progress of your athlete or the current ability levels of your athlete and how many athletes you're working with.